Welcome back to another episode of Meredith with a Y. I'm back with my amazing colleague here, Allison, and today we're talking about why the hell does it matter that we're human and what does it do for us and what's the darn point. So stay with us. Hello, everyone. This is Meredith with a Y, and I am your host, Meredith Willett. Today we are going to go deep, changing lives, and I am giving you the keys to the castle. Allison, thank you so much for doing this with me again. We don't have a topic and now we have a topic. So let's talk about the topic of why the heck does it matter that we're human and what importance does it play? And I get a lot of questions like, why would I sign up for this? Like, why? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, give us 2 minutes and we can come up with the deepest questions about why we're here. So here we are to do all of that. Yeah, we were just chatting about we're these eternal beings that are here and we're in these human bodies and how important it is to embody your human. And what does that even really look like and feel like? And I think just to kick things off, maybe let's round out for those people that haven't been with us or with you since the beginning, the concept of being a spirit in a human body.
Yeah. You've heard, many people have heard you are a spiritual being having a human experience, not the other way around. You're not having a spiritual experience. You already are spirit. And especially a lot of times when I talk about this idea that you're, you have come into this human experience with a family in a particular location at a certain date and time, which gives you your culture and your religion and your food and the way you're going to be raised and your financial status and opportunities or lack of opportunities. And I get a lot of questions on social media like, why would I choose this life? I would never choose this life. You're wrong. And so I think we should talk about that today. Like, why would we choose this experience? And this gets tricky because a lot of people have a rough go this time around life or are having a rough time right now. And why would they choose this? And the other thing that we were talking about as something to discuss is the importance of being a human being and why that matters. Why this dense physical body that has emotions and pain and suffering and trials and tribulations and difficulty having childbirth and illness and all that stuff. Why does it matter? Why would we choose to do all of this? And then the other thing is, what as humans can we do in the physical body to get out of our heads, get out of the swirl thinking and take advantage of being a human being in a three-dimensional physical body to the best of our ability while we are stuck here. So it's who, what, where, when, and why. And the question is always coming, like I said, of why would I choose this? And we have to and would have to look at this concept of reincarnation. Or if you don't believe in reincarnation, I guess you could say karma. So you could say karma, or there's really no reason to suffer unless you've existed before this. There would be no reason for that. Unless you believe that hell on earth is the hell that one speaks of in, philosophy or religion. So it's a very difficult conversation because why would I choose to suffer for the experience maybe or to get you back on
Mhm.
track, right? So either you were, let's say you were in a past life, you were this warmonger who would go into villages and kill all the women and children. And so in this lifetime, you're going to experience the opposite of that in some way, shape, or form so that your spirit self can then appreciate, hey, this is what it feels like to be a warmonger. And this is what it feels like to be on the other side of violence. And so
Mhm.
now I have perspective because the only way to get into a space of true grace, understanding, and love is to experience all the experiences that humanity or whatever has to offer. And that's a tough one because people are like, "Oh, so what you're saying is children that are assaulted or killed or have childhood cancer, I have cancer, whatever it is, you're telling me that I signed up for that. And that's a really difficult conversation to have.
Yeah.
But for me, I always look at it and go, at least it makes sense and I can learn from it. And so, to your point, prior to hitting record today, you were having questions about the importance, or is there an importance of astrology?
Yeah, we were talking about, so I'm into astrology, and I definitely notice when the planet are moving, when there's a full moon, like I can feel it and I see it and I just feel the energy and I'm like, wow, it's so relatable. Now, maybe not everybody's into this. However, just I'm like a sensitive person and I notice it. So I guess my curiosity when it comes to this type of thing is, all right, so we're like you're saying, we're humans, we're spirit beings having a human experience. So then there's all these other physical elements that we live within, right? We're meant to experience fully our bodies, the physical earth, like the area, the physical realm in which we live. We're not necessarily, like you always say, meant to be the Buddha on the mountain, not experiencing this physical life. To even back up a little bit further of that, of the download that you had that said we are placed on this earth at a certain time, location. And if you
Date,
look
time,
at
and location. Yeah.
astrology, it's all based on that. It's
Yep.
all based on exactly where you were born, exactly the time you were born, like to the minute. And then you take a snapshot of the sky and you look at that snapshot. And that's essentially like your, you could say, your energy map for this lifetime.
Yeah.
That's how astrology works. So I was always curious, as a physical being going through this experience on Earth, and how does that correlate? Like, why do we have planets that are creating energies for us? How does that even relate to that download you got? And what does that even mean?
Yeah. As you were sitting there talking about it, I was like looking at the stars in my head. And it's almost like this lever is pushed, this lever is pulled, this lever's in fourth position or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's not so much because like people would be like, why does my situation matter with regard to where Pluto's at, right? In the sky? What does that mean? But as you were talking about it was more about kind of like a mapping, like the way they're showing it, like a computer chip. It was like, okay, this, when it looks like this, it's going to be this click, click, click computer chip. So that's how they're showing it to me right now is it's more like levers being pushed. And I think we've talked about here before, the moon affects our tides in the ocean and moves the entire ocean. And we are made up of water. So it does make sense that there's some sort of push and pull that affects our physical bodies with regard to that. The only way I can describe why astrology or like a lot of people are into human design right now, which human
Mm,
design is also based on the day, time, and location that you're born and what kind of like qualities you're going to have. Are you going to be a leader? Are you going to be a teacher? Are you going to be whatever it is? And the way that they're showing it to me is the only way I can describe is like a computer chip, a snapshot computer chip of your birth.
when you say
Um,
computer chip, you mean this is the program essentially for your life.
yeah, it looks like, okay, that gets plugged into that. And people say, what about if you have to have an emergency C-section? What if you're delivered early? What if you miscarry? What if you're 2 weeks late? And my response is, then that's exactly the way it was supposed to be. But almost predetermined that you're going to go into labor early or you're gonna have to be induced because people are like, "What about induced? You're not really being born on the quote unquote day you're supposed to." And I'm like, "No, that's exactly what you're being
Part of
born
the
is
plan.
exactly on the day you're supposed to." And so many people have questions like that as if we are altering it. Are we, or is that baby altering it? Is the universe altering it? Is the universe making sure that child isn't born until it's exact day and time that it's supposed to be to those exact parents? And again, I think we talked about this on a prior episode. But they're showing me even in the moments of delivery that sometimes souls will switch places. Like, they're just like, "Yeah, I don't think I'm up for this like I thought I was," because being human is profoundly difficult. We have these very dense bodies that get sick, that experience pain, experience emotion and suffering, that are so affected by negativity, of other people. If you were to be a spirit and be on the other side, if you will, it's you're experiencing that which is God, which is eternally when people talk have near-death experiences, they talk about that feeling of welcoming love, like that overwhelming sense of love. And so we are really separated from that on Earth when we have to deal with other humans that have egos and different programs. But if you look at it and you really pulled yourself back, you would see that they're using the word actually right now is it's very orchestrated, which I find fascinating, like, that they're making it they're like, "This is just like a play. You guys are but you just don't know you're in a play. Why don't we know we're in a play? If you knew that it's a play, then you wouldn't experience the lessons in the same way as you do when you don't remember." And a lot of people right now are talking about how the veil is being lifted and we are being allowed to remember. And I did watch something recently where they were talking about the fact that within the next decade that we will be able to fully be aware of who, what, and where we are in relationship to spirit, relationship to aliens, if you will, and so on and so forth. But I find it that right now we're going through this new age energy where people are like, "Oh my god, I'm so 5D." Like, "Oh my god, I spend, like, hours meditating and doing yoga." And it's like, that's not really what you're meant to do. And I actually have clients that I will tell them, "Okay, no more meditating. No more meditating, no more taking courses on hypnosis or anything. I want you to go ride a four-wheeler. I want you to go dig a ditch. I want you to go plant flowers because I feel that this desire to be this kind of existential new wave five-dimensional being is actually very unhealthy. I think
When you're
it's
talking about
Go
when
ahead.
you're talking about that, it's almost like a pulling away from
Mhm.
versus a going like a really knitting yourself into because you're so in your head
Yeah.
that I think the real like the rubber meets the road, right? Like when you have to go deal with people, when you
Yeah.
have to go deal with a tough situation, like that's when you show up.
Yeah.
That's when you're really living the experience.
Yeah.
And enough there's not a time for everything like you said, but what better way to learn the lesson than to be in engagement with life and with being in your body.
Yeah, and it makes you feel better than the experience, right? So, let's say you're supposed to go take an anatomy class in college, and you feel that you are much smarter than the professor. You're above the information. And so, every time you go sit down in your seat, you're rolling your eyes, you're tapping your pencil, you're distracted, you've got your nose in the air. You're not getting any value out of that class. And so, the human experience is the same way. If you're constantly rolling your eyes at the three-dimensional and being better than it, which to me is actually very much in step with religion, right? I'm saved, you're not, you're backsliding. I'm on board. I go to church 22 times a week, or I'm Catholic, so I can have communion. You're not, you can't. There's all this leveling, right? And it's I'm better than this human experience. And it goes so deep as to I'm a doctor, you're pick up trash, so I'm better than you. And so it's this kind of othering of humans instead of understanding that we are all one. And so it lessens the beauty of the experience when we're always trying to be or feel that we're more than like people always say, you put your pants on one leg at a time. Everyone goes to the restroom. And so we need
Mhm.
to remember everyone goes to the restroom for a reason. It's because we're all having this experience. And so to poo it, it's interesting because I'm doing this project that I'm very physically involved in with this house. And I'm watching these two guys that I'm working very much side by side with. And they're very happy people. They're physically working with their hands all the time. They're creative. They're problem solvers. They work physically hard. They sleep deep at night. They're strong. And I have been very fascinated, and they're wonderful people. But I've been fascinated watching them because the one is very, like, existentially a little bit, to be honest, and the other one's kind of like your more meat and potato guy, but they're very grounded people. They're not constantly cycling around in their head, it doesn't seem. It seems like they're very present, and you have to be. Like, today we were swinging sledgehammers, breaking up concrete. You cannot be thinking that your butt's too big when you're swinging a sledgehammer and breaking up concrete. You just can't. You have to be present, and I think that we are missing that, and as I just said that, we are missing that. They're showing me the concept and forwardly motion of this change in education and the change of the workspace because we've gotten ahead to this point by being the smartest guy in the room, and I think that it's going to switch so that we can appreciate all types of people in all lines of work that have all different sorts of abilities. Because when I just said that, they're like, "Yeah, and that's why we're headed in this direction so that people can get back to having farms and planting their food and going for walks and having more leisure time instead of working 80 hours a week." We're going to go backwards a little bit and get more in touch with being humans, more in touch
Yeah.
with being outside, working with our hands, almost to the point where I feel like there's some sort of change in, like, the global it's, like, electricity, like, something I feel like is going to change where we're going to have to rely more on ourselves, more on community. Like, it's showing me that we're almost headed in the direction of and I'm not sure why, but, what they're showing me right now is you're gonna be forced to step more inside of your physical body instead of pretending to be the, like, higher than, like, meditating all day. We're not supposed to
Mhm.
meditate all day. Meditating all day, if I were to give someone a prescription of meditating all day, I'd say go four-wheeling, go ziplining, go dig a ditch, go plant a garden. You work with your hands, that is positive meditation.
Yeah, and to me, what you're saying is what they call, like, being in the flow, when you can get in they say you can get into that flow state, and typically the flow state, I think you can get there through meditation, but you can get there through typically it's when you're doing something, right? When you're doing something physically, sometimes it's a repetitive motion, whatever it is, but you're in that flow state, which I feel like is such a connected space. And I think that's really interesting too, because like personally, I'm one of those people where I feel like I have to be outside to stay connected and grounded and happy. If I don't get outside, I'm not okay. Like I have to be outside. So I think it's also something that probably a lot of other people can experience. But when you're not used to being outside, or when you're so used to being like in your four walls or living in a space where you're really outside of connection with the earth, it's almost like you probably don't even know what you're missing either.
Yeah. You just get used to
So
your rut.
what's that?
You get used to being in your rut. I was watching this thing, it was a Dolores Cannon, or I was reading a book, I don't remember what it was, and it was in the future, like maybe a couple 100 years, 1,000 years in the future, and she was having a conversation with this person that was under hypnosis, and
Hmm.
he was in the future life instead of a past life, and he was talking to her about something, and she was, like, trying to figure out where he lived. 'Cause that's one of the cues you would use during a hypnotic session is, "What does your house look like? Let's go to your house." And one of the questions I believe, if I remember correctly, that she asked is, "Do you live in an apartment?" And he started laughing at her and was like, "People still live in apartments? Like, no one lives in apartments." So I thought that was fascinating that what he was relaying back was that no one would be there would be no reason to have everybody living in a small space like that without access to the outside. Like, we were not meant to live our physical bodies with all of this cement and no trees, no animals, no whatever. And I think that as been doing this project more and more, which is forcing me to be outside and working with my physical body for hours and hours, toiling away, is I enjoy it, and I feel like I'm really going back to who I was decades ago, and I really have tapped back into a very special part of who I am and really understanding what's important to me.
Yeah.
It's
So
it's
interesting.
Yeah, it's just forcing it's creating a sense of pride in push brooming our garage. Or, like I just said, I was, like, digging up, like, sewage lines right before I hit record, and like, we're trying to look for why isn't the toilets flushing, and we gotta find it, and we're digging up and sledgehammering. There's something very satisfying in that, and we have gotten ourselves to a place in society where that is less than. Working with your hands less than. And I'm here to tell you that it's not. It's actually really tapped in. I have the Gucci belts, I have the Prada shoes, I have the Porsche, but I will tell you that cleaning up this stuff and going through it and getting muddy and taking a shower at the end of the day out of good God need to be able to climb into my sheets and like barely making it to 7 o'clock without shutting my eyes because I'm so exhausted. That is God. That is heavenly. And we're learning through social media and Instagram and television and influencers, that's not where it's at. And I think that people are really missing this physical experience of gardening and physical labor and how beneficial it is. And it doesn't have
Mhm.
to, you don't have to love cleaning toilets and doing dishes and digging ditches and trimming your trees and planting a garden. Like maybe pick a lane, right? But I think that we have been sold a bill of goods that physical labor and doing physical tasks are somehow beneath us. And I am finding that it is a part of a very negative program that we're following.
Yeah, it's almost like our bodies have gotten left behind because the intellect and the power of going to college and getting your master's and your doctorate and all of these things, there's been such a huge focus on how cerebral we can be that we've forgotten. It's almost like science and art. It's almost, oh, we're leaning so much into this like scientific brain that we forget the art of our human body and like how impactful that can be in our lives through experiencing life through your human body. We don't move our bodies for any type of joy. Think about that anymore, right? We're not out there. Yeah, when you're young, you drink and then you go dance, right? You get your you get your mind so obliterated so that your body can actually move freely
Mm.
versus
Remove the ego.
going out and moving your body for the sake of pleasure, for the sake because it feels good to have a physical experience that is not just, "Oh, I have to go to the gym so that I can look good."
Well,
But I
and
don't
think
like
about
going to the gym. Like, why are we doing that?
well,
Why are
and
we embodying our bodies?
yeah, and think about when you do dance, so how often are you judged? If you were going for a walk down the side of the street and you decided to start skipping, you're crazy. You're a crazy person. If you're an adult and you start doing cartwheels, what are you doing? It's so we're being and as I'm talking about this, 2 things are coming up, like, when you were talking about but while I'm talking about this, they're like, yeah, like, we so when I'm saying the word "we" in this moment right now, I'm coming from a lower plane. It's almost I don't even know where I'm coming from right now because I'm not usually tapped into this information. It's almost like a higher self of a human mind, but it's a collection of human minds. So that's the best way I'm gonna be able to describe it. So the way that when I'm tapping into this, imagine I'm talking into like more of a human psyche, which is we have trained humans to step away from the physical and lean into the intellectual and move away from having fun and being free and doing all of the things that actually empower humans, that
Mhm.
empower the spirit of the human. But when you were talking about getting your doctorate and getting your PhD and getting all of these things, what they showed me is, yeah, why do you think ChatGTP has come in? Why do you think that we're doing all this AI? Is because that will lessen the importance of intelligence.
The need, yeah.
We're taking away if everyone has $700 and that's it. Everyone has $700 doesn't mean anything because everybody has it. As we move to this AI stuff, everyone's going to have the capability of having the exact same information. And as you were talking about that, I was asking the question to whomever we're tapping into right now, that's the higher ups. I'm like, what about like medical procedures? And they're like, what's going to happen is there's going to be so much like medical information inside of AI that it's almost gonna be like an oil change because they're going to have, like when
Like
you put in the
robotic
prompt yeah,
surgery.
when you put in the prompt, this person has this situation with their heart and that situation, yes, you're going to have a trained person, but all the heart surgeons are going to have that information. It's not gonna be like, "This is the best heart surgeon." They're all going to be able to tap into all of the best information at the exact time. So what they're actually doing with this implementation of the AI is we're like pulling out all the stops for the benefits of being these cerebral smart people. And that being this like, oh my God, I've attained so much information. And so who cares? All I have to do is talk into my app and it's going to tell me everything. It's interesting the way they're showing we're going to go back to more of a physical experience. I don't know
Mhm.
how it's going to work out. I can see it, but it's gonna be forced because we're losing ourselves. We're losing ourselves in the wrong things
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, that's so powerful. I think also to just refocus or change the perspective on what our value is as a human being. What value do we bring, right? So if there's Chat GPT and there's all these different technology that can play doctor, right? There's all these things that are taking away all of the pieces that we thought were going to make us better than or have value or whatever. So then where is our value, right? Is it in when I think about that, and I would love to hear but when I think about that, I think about like ideas and creativity and a different perspective and like creative arts and things like that, that aren't something that you could necessarily plug in and out pops an answer.
Yeah, which they do have AI logo makers, AI art makers now. You can go in and find, like, all that kinda stuff where you're like, "Draw me a picture of this," and the AI will create that. So, it's going to be really super interesting to see where we go in the future and where we are benefiting. The fact that they can use I don't know if you people have seen this, but what is that? It's like a drawer that's like liquid like a three-dimensional drawer
Oh, yeah, like a 3D pen,
3D
maybe?
pen, so like a 3D pen, but instead of it being a pen, it actually goops out cement. So you can 3D draw an entire house and just plug in the information, fill it up with concrete, and it makes you a house, at least the walls and stuff like that. So we're moving into a really interesting space of where's this all headed, but more importantly, why? Why are we headed in this direction that no one there was a video I was watching of this gal that I follow on social. She's brilliant, and she was talking about how she got this brand deal. And so all of the documents came over for the brand deal, and she was like, "All right, I'm gonna put this into the Chat GPT." And so she said, "Put this in plain speak." And she copied the entire document and pasted it into ChatGPT, and it broke down this entire legal document out of legalese into plain speak so she could understand what the heck this document was actually saying to her. And I was just like, "What?" So now you can, like, literally comb through a long legal document that makes, like, literally no sense and make it make sense so that you can not have to meet with a lawyer. You can make sense of the document, you can ask the right questions, change the things you wanna change. And I was like, "There's just literally no end to this." And so I find that fascinating that if it can make logos and art and documents and legal documents, like, I am using it for a lot of stuff, like, with my website because of the fact, why not? Why do I wanna write a welcome page on my website when I could say, "Write a welcome message on a website for a vacation property?" It spits it out in 2 seconds. So, instead of me spending my time laboring over something, like, that I don't really wanna do and spending my time doing that, it's great, but it doesn't need to be me writing it. I can then go do something outdoors. 'Cause I'm not sitting there laboring over this document or building this all this website stuff. So I we need to ask ourselves, why are we headed in this direction? Why? Not if, because it's already done. But why are we heading in this direction? What does it mean for humanity? And in that breath, we also need to really start checking back in with our physical bodies and doing the things that connect us to the earth that actually they're showing over and over again. You can Google this how much being outside and quote earthing, which is connecting to the earth with bare feet or laying in the grass, it is a game changer to your physical body, and so I think that if I were to look at it, I would say that's why we're headed in this AI direction, is to get us out of the cubicle once and for all.
Yeah, get us out of our heads and get us out of our environment and back to the earth. So why do you think that there's such a calling to get back to the earth itself? Because the earth, for all intents and purposes, is the physical 3D, right?
So when you were just asking that, what I'm being shown is because we are going to have connection with the aliens, which are just us that haven't taken the physical form of being humans. They might live on another planet, they might live in another timeline, dimension, whatever the thing is, right? And it's coming out slowly, right? It's like trickling. There's Area 51, and now then there's UFOs, and now there's UFOs everywhere. And now the government's saying, yes, there's UFOs. Like, it's not if, it's definite. And so, what does that mean for us? So, as you were just talking about that, what they were showing me is that we're definitely not gonna be the smartest guy in the room within the next decade, right? Because the aliens are going to be much more advanced than we are. And so it will almost when I'm looking at it, it's like they're checking in with us and saying, "Okay, tell us what it's like to skip. Tell us what it's like to be on a boat or play in the grass." It's almost like an experiment the way I'm seeing it, that we're going to be much more active and inside of knowledge participant of, "Hey, we're on Earth and we're here to experience these things, and now we know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. So, what does that mean for us?" Because the veil, the belief system that being a doctor or a lawyer or a CEO, what they're saying is that's going to disappear. This getting on top is going to go away. And when it goes away, what are you left with? When you don't benefit anymore from being the richest or the smartest because that's taken from us in some way. And again, I can't quite figure out why it's going to go away.
Yeah, we need to
Um,
know about that, Mayor. We need
I know,
to
right?
dig in
For
there.
whatever reason, they're not showing it to me because I'm like looking at like Dubai. I think it has more to do with the facade of money. It's like we finally realize like when the facade disappears, when this veil drops, we will instantly know that money is make believe. Once money is make believe, what the hell are you left with? If intelligence is only a matter of ability, okay? So let's say you and I were neighbors and you're super smart, which is great, right? You're super smart. But I don't really give a shit if Shakespeare. It doesn't do me any good because we need to figure out how to build a garden between the two of us and what your days to plow are going to be and what my days to harvest are going to be and how we're going to work together as a community. Because you and I now know that money is, they just said the word exempt. It doesn't mean shit, right? So knowing quantum physics and all of the United States history doesn't mean shit because it has been revealed to us that it doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
And that's what they're showing to me is all of the things that we have placed value on is about to disappear.
Yeah. Okay. So when you say about to disappear, what does that timeline look like in your mind?
I would say over the next decade. I would say over
Okay.
the next decade.
Do you feel like it is something that's going to be kind of like slow happening over time, or is it going to be like like a more of a COVID all of a sudden situation?
Let's see. So when is money going to, so they're going to try to do this money thing where it's all digitized. They've already started doing it before COVID where they wouldn't accept cash. Like you'd go into like we will only accept card. So it's already starting. We don't have change. We only take card. So they already started planting the seed of that credit is everything. The way that they can control us with that is A, they can choose when and how and where we can spend our money in proximity to our house. They can choose they
And
will
shut it
know
down.
they can shut down your cards. So let's say you're running from the law, you'll have absolutely no way the only way we have anonymity is through cash. So if someone pays me $1,000 under the table, I don't have to claim that. So if we go to this digitized currency, everything will be tracked all of the time. There's going to be no loopholes. There's going to be no way around taxation. There's gonna be no way to pay for drugs on a street corner because you'd have to swap. "Okay, I'll wash your car for drugs." It'll turn into a barter system, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It's gonna shut down, like, things like the cartel. It's gonna shut down all of these things. So that's going to be this first step. They're already starting it with the smart cities and trying to implement that. So they're trying to digitize everything and take away our anonymity and our freedom of kind of spending, right? Spending, buying, purchasing, going and doing freely without being tracked. That's the other thing is you can be tracked 24/7 if every time you spend a cent, it's somehow tracked in digital currency. So I believe that is going to happen. And then, like, when I'm looking at that, everything starts breaking down in like China. I feel like there's something that's going to go on in China that just starts breaking down somehow. That's when I'm looking at the world map. That's the direction that's going in. And so it's almost as if the population, it's not so much a matter of the governments, but it's more the population, it's more society, it's the me and you that check out of that system because we realize that we don't want to be a part of it. So there's going to be people that are good and okay being part of the digitized system. And there's going to be people that are going to want to be free and are going to figure out other communities. You're going to see things like commune type behaviors starting up again, very 1970s of people like leaving society. So a lot of that's going to start happening, but I see this as probably being over the next like decade. And China's very involved in it.
Mm.
It's almost like something's happening with them where they're pulling the rug out from underneath of us in America. They're going to do something.
They own a lot of our debt.
Yeah, it's something that it creates a situation where the dollar is nothing. This is not based on all of the recent information outside of the digital cash piece. this is something that I'm just seeing in my head. There's something weighty in China that's going to change the way Americans see all of it, where we're just
Mhm.
like, "I can't anymore with this." Like, we literally toil for 8 hours a day to bring home 4 hours of pay.
Yeah.
What are we doing? And it's don't get me wrong, I think we should have roads and schools and post offices, but again, this goes back to our education podcast we did a couple weeks ago, where the education system's going to change so much that these socialized kind of benefits, like the post office and all, that's going to change so much. So it's going to be like, okay, we're paying for roads and war at this point with our taxes. Like,
What's the point? What are we doing?
what are we doing? We're not even going to have any benefit for all these taxes. So it's going to be interesting to see how it breaks down. But the thing that I would like to say to people is there's no prize at the end of this for sitting in a cubicle or sitting in your apartment and watching television all day. Get out there.
Yeah.
You have this physical body and have fun with it. Like skip, dance. Like that's the one thing I said forever ago was like when I talked to dead people, it was like their thing that I just kept hearing over and over again is you should dance more. Move your body, enjoy it. You've got these crazy arms and legs and noses and ears and hair. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
And I
Go
think,
swimming, put your feet in the grass, experience
yeah.
it all.
And I will tell you again, like going for a walk or riding your bike or roller skating, that is meditation. We need to get out of this sitting inside of an ashram. Not that there's anything wrong with an ashram, but get out with the people. Go meet people. Like I was just telling you before we started, a lot of times I do Instacart because it just makes sense for me to do that. But I can't do Instacart. That's where they go and buy your groceries for you and then bring them to your house. But I can't do Instacart so that I can sit on my couch. I need to do
Right.
Instacart so that I can go to a park, so that I can go for a bike ride, so that I can go meet with people in a different way. I think that we are creating such I will tell you with this project, I like right now I have 4 boxes outside from Amazon for this project because it's a half an hour each way to the closest store here in Michigan. So it makes sense for me not to have to keep driving around in circles picking stuff up when it can show up at my house. But it's important that you go out in meeting people and going to restaurants. Like we're becoming so isolated that our nervous system is like shocked to be around someone that's chewing or talking or their kids crying. Like we're so hypersensitive post COVID from for any behavior or noise. We're so insulted and under assault from our nervous systems of never being around humans. And this is the direction that we're headed in is not sustainable. The direction of being isolated, shopping online, never going to the grocery store, never going anywhere, going to drive-throughs, not being in contact with humans. It's universally, it's humanly, it's globally not sustainable for the human condition and survival. It's not.
And
We don't
what
even go to
and
bars anymore. Everyone's just swiping left and right, and they go meet somebody. They're not experiencing going out and meeting people and going to meetups and playing beach volleyball. Like they just wanna swipe and meet, and then is it good or bad or ugly? This isn't sustainable is what I'm saying. It's not
yes.
sustainable. This is very Sodom and Gomorrah. This is very what was it when was it Sodom and Gomorrah where, like, they like, the whole place burnt down or whatever in the Bible? It feels very unsustainable. What everything that's changing right now is changing inside of such a pressure cooker of global change that is completely going to change everything.
Yeah. I don't think that there's I think that the amount of change that we're currently under right now is tremendous.
Mm,
And I think it's amazing when you start to really take a step back and look at how quickly just, I don't know, as evolution has gone on, look at how quickly we've changed. And yet, I bet you looking forward, we're gonna look back and be like, "Oh, we thought that was quick." About Hey, remember like 2020 till 2030? How about
Yeah. Yeah, and that's because people are tapping into their intuition and they're actually following it. If you look at people like Einstein, if you look at people like Steve Jobs, though that information is downloaded. Like those are downloads. There's no such thing as a new idea, right? Even when I'm sitting here channeling information during this podcast, these aren't my ideas. I'm not this. I don't have these ideas. I would never say these things to a person in my three-dimensional life. This is downloaded, and so as the veil's thinning and we get more and more people are acting on those downloads, think about the fact that I think when I met my husband like 17 years ago, I'm not sure I had a phone. I might have been doing like the
yeah.
AABB texting, but now we walk around with full blown computers with a 20 some pixel camera attached to it that can do everything. And we have Apple watches where we can have full on conversations with people from our watch. That's the shit of movies. And we're now living that. It's going to happen faster for whatever reason. It's fascinating to say, what is going on? But I think the what is going on is because we're moving in a direction where we're going to be much more aware of our humanity and why our humanity exists soon
Yeah. I
in a very
love that.
different way.
I
I
love
mean,
it. Yeah.
why else are we here? Think how stupid it is. We're on a rock floating in space. This is so stupid. Makes no sense. Why would we be here? What's the point? The only point is experience. It's it. Like, why do we need to experience this? I don't know. Growth, expansion. Like, why can't we experience this as spirit? Why can't we experience this as aliens? Why can't we? It's fascinating. It's intriguing. It makes no sense that we live on a planet with trees and snails. How stupid are snails? The dumbest thing I've ever heard. Mosquitoes. This is stupid. Stop it right now. Who invented mosquitoes? This is dumb. But here we are, irritated by mosquitoes, having
Get
what?
outside, everyone.
I know exactly. But yeah, think about it. Some people are allergic to mosquitoes and their whole face blows up and they welt up. Why? I don't know. Interesting. Maybe you were bored and you needed to be allergic to something. Like all of these things, when you think about them and really sit inside of them, none of it makes sense.
But we're trying to make sense of it all right
And,
here.
and here we are trying to make sense. Just dragging all of you along with us. This has been fun.
Yeah, it's
It
funny
really
because we start with something and then you get your downloads and then we just follow the ride.
Rubik
It's
Road.
great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and so just imagine tomorrow if everyone woke up and had the same house and the same job and everyone had 40 bars of gold, then what do you do? Like,
You
that's
better
where you
go
gotta
out.
go.
You better go outside.
Ugh,
You better
gotta
put
go
your feet in the
outside.
earth and you better start dancing.
I know, go dance. That's what it's all about. We're gonna reel it back. We're gonna reel it back to the body and have fun with it and enjoy it and go out and smell the roses and do a project. You'll feel like $1,000,000. You feel physically good, but
Yeah.
thanks for being here again, Allison.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love it. Love
So
this
good.
topic.
I know, it makes me just feel very present. I don't know, it
Yeah,
makes
very
things,
grounded.
yeah, feel less chaotic. It's, "Oh, okay, that's cool." Like, flowers are here for us literally just to look at and smell. That's nice. Think about how dumb that is, but how awesome at the same time. Like, when
Well,
you
it just
start
makes everything so simple and so on purpose
manageable. Yeah,
that it's like
manageable.
you don't have to worry about all that. Just let it go. Just
Let
let
it go.
all the rest of that stuff go.
Yeah,
And that's
it's
what I love about this conversation.
so good. Well, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Alright,
Until next time.
we'll see you guys here next week. Thanks so much. Thanks for listening. If you would like to connect on a more personal level, head over to meredithwillits.com or on Instagram at Meredith with a Y for behind the scene footage and outtakes. Please subscribe and come back each week for more Meredith with a Y. Thanks again for listening. Cheers.